Alright, Victorum Gaming fans, we're back. We got another SPQR video today. We're moving right along in our series of reviews for the different factions. Today we're covering Sparta. So, again, we get our little history background, some fun quotes and stuff like that. History of the military, how they're formed and all that. So, if you're looking for an elite army that can wreck a lot of people in close combat, a little bit one-dimensional, but again, extremely elite with a couple of really really one super badass hero, this is a list for you. So if you like the history behind them, or if like you're a fan of like 300 or something like that, and want to play something that actually kind of plays pretty close to that in its effectiveness, the Spartan Warband is for you. So you got a couple really cool options here. So on the hero side, and again, whether it's like heads up play or really even for campaigns, the Spartan hero is a little bit different than everything we've seen so far. So we've seen a lot of heroes at 45 denarii base cost or 50, and then like a little bit of a toolbox where you can basically build them into what you need them. Spartan hero is going to be a little bit different. Starts off at 70 denarii, and a little bit slower because they're already equipped with armor. Only range 1. Again, you're not going to be doing much with range with the Spartan list, but starts off with melee +3, 2 dice, +3 agility, +4 bravery, the armor, and unlike other heroes, starts already with 3 wounds. So you're basically almost starting as like a level 2 hero, really. And you still also get a large shield and linothorax. So no weapons yet, but really that's pretty short and to the point. So you can go even heavier and go cuirass. Again, you're going to be even slower, but you're just a tank at that point. The arrow apron is questionable how useful that is in game. I haven't had a chance a lot to see it used or play with or against it yet, but gives you a little bit more protection against range. But honestly, if your armor is already good, there's not too much in the game that's that scary for ranged to make you really worry about that. A dagger seems like an absolute waste of time. Sword is really a solid option there. So between sword and long spear, those are going to be like your really typical upgrades, and probably pick up both. Really, you can give the guy some javelins too, but really doesn't seem necessary. Your bread and butter with Spartans is getting into combat and winning, and then doing it all over again. He's got a really cool special rule for a hero. So basically, for Sparta, a hero may reroll all failed will to fight checks. So basically, like a freebie talent almost for the hero himself. So unlike other heroes where we've kind of talked about toolboxes, again, this guy is he's there to fight in close combat, basically, and he's going to do well at that. All right, and then we come to basically the main unit for the Spartans. So again, I said this is not a very diverse army, so it does really one thing, but it does it very well. So you get your Spartan hoplite. Again, we've seen Athens so far, and Macedonia, even though that's not really a hoplite. And so moves 5, range 1, again, base melee +3 and 2 dice is really good. Not so much on the agility there, but again, a base bravery of 3. Armors 2 from the linothorax, and if this is not a typo, again, this is one of those areas where we earlier we talked about with Imperial Rome, the Praetorian Guard starting at a base 2 wounds for infantry. Again, if this is intended, that's fine. It does make these guys really, really good, and that's maybe just because of the fact that you're also going to be you're pretty much always going to be outnumbered. So with the Spartans, but even then, these guys do seem like a little bit too good at 24 denarii with 2 base wounds. So I don't think this was addressed in the FAQ. So I do hope Warlord at some point addresses that if indeed there's balance issues. They do seem really good so far, but they're certainly not unbeatable. But in the games I've seen with and against them, it's you don't tend to lose really in the fights at all. It's more on like a mission or something. So you're just not gonna have enough bodies to get necessarily everything done in a certain mission. But again, that's something to look at. I don't really feel like any base unit, unless it's cavalry, should start with 2 wounds. But that's just my 2 cents there. So as with the hero, basically we can go even heavier with cuirasses, which for another 10 denarii. So +3 armor, 2 wounds, 34 denarii seems really good if you got the points. arrow aprons, again, here they're only 1 point apiece, so that might be something to consider. Swords are definitely a good consideration, just because, again, if you want that extra parry in combat, which the spear doesn't give you. And then you have an option for a horn. So 3 rounds of fighting with these guys, potentially, or move to get to the fight is really good. They also have 4 Sparta, so basically they'll reroll all their will to fight checks. So really, with +3 bravery, you're not going to fail a lot of leadership related things with the Spartan army. And then they do have the option of forming a phalanx too, which is, again, just ridiculously good. And honestly, a Spartan unit in phalanx, you're pretty much just, there's no point in trying to fight that head on, unless you have something equal or better, and then it really just comes down to dice. It's just they're so good, and with their 2 wounds, that's also really nasty. So you're gonna have to find ways to break the phalanx, get them below 10 so they can't form a phalanx, flank around, just do other things. But yeah, basically your army is going to consist of multiple units of these guys, and they're going to do one thing only, really, and that's beat the crap out of people in close combat. So moving on, you do have what's called the perioikoi hoplites, which are basically not this like super well trained Spartans, but basically like citizen soldiers essentially. So a little bit more reasonable as far as just having the 1 wound, and stats are pretty okay. You still get +2 melee, 2 melee dice, and solid bravery. The armor, basically you just have to spend the points to get back up there, but again, another solid option if you want to basically add more bodies, and they can still do fairly well. You can keep them cheap on the armor too if you want to just go with helmets, but you got linothorax and cuirass too, so again, you can go light, medium, heavy there. Swords are an option too. They do come with large shields and spears, and the horn, and they don't have the 4 Sparta rule, so it's something to pay attention to. But even then, bravery +2 is solid, and they do have the ability to perform phalanx. So solid build might be going with like linothorax and a sword, just take you to 20. And that way that gives you some more bodies over the actual Spartan hoplites. So something to consider there. Or if you feel like you've got enough in the Spartan hoplites and just need those extra bodies to maybe get objectives or something like that, you could forego the armor completely and just maybe rely on your shields for ranged parries and stuff like that, and combat parries. Then the other unit you get, which are basically the slaves in Spartan society, the helots, and as you can maybe tell by their denarii cost, a whopping 3, and their stats certainly reflect that. You get range 1, melee +0, 1 dice, 1 agility, 1 bravery, and they just come with a dagger. So what are you going to do with these guys? Well, if you're getting into combat with the daggers, yeah, they're basically just sacrificial. But again, you could get huge quantities of these guys and have them either hover over objectives or even flank a little bit with these guys, and just the sheer size of a unit you can build for not a lot of points can be kind of nasty. So you can give these guys 3 javelins per helot at 2 apiece. So if you went all in on that, there's still only 9 denarii, but again, range +1 is going to be a little bit iffy getting value out of them. Another option to consider would be going with slings. It does take you to 7 denarii a piece, but even then, a unit of 10 is only going to run you 70 denarii. You can park them in the back on an objective, and again, slings having a range of 30 means you should be able to reach most things that you need to reach. And every now and then they can maybe even contribute with like actually killing something. But a unit that's going to like be dedicated to come after these guys is going to take them down. There's no armor upgrades here, so they do have hit and run though, so that is an option if you're thinking about flanking with these guys. You could upgrade them from daggers to swords if that's your only upgrade. Does let them parry a little bit in combat, but again, that melee +0, it's questionable to think about combat with these guys. And you get hit and run, but really, I think combat is just like a no-go for these guys unless you just have a giant unit, maybe even maxed out at like I think 30 is the max you can get on a unit. And if you got the points for that, a horde of these guys might be kind of scary, depending on how many 6s you can roll there. If you have another way to buff these guys, they do have a colorful special rule too, which can get you into trouble if you don't use it right or have it used against you. So the helots were cruelly treated by their Spartan masters and given a chance for freedom. Many would take it. If a unit of helots is ever more than 12 away from a Spartan hoplite or hero at the end of a turn, or is within line of sight of a Spartan hero removed as a casualty, it must take a bravery check. And again, we go back up, only +1. If it succeeds, the whole unit is immediately removed as a casualty as it flees from the battlefield. So if you do get lucky and pass your bravery, they're just going to take off and try and get their freedom. In addition, helots that leave the battlefield due to a failed will to fight check in a campaign are treated as though they were casualties. The Spartan player must roll for each helot as though they were injured to see if they return to his warband. So if you're playing in a campaign, definitely a risk to consider there. But you could also build a hero that's kind of maybe tasked with being around these guys and leading them. Beyond that, Spartans on the mercenary side, interestingly that they get access to Athens and Thebes. Again, just kind of interesting there. You might think that really they should only have Spartan units as mercenaries, but you could, again, if you look at the history, they did win the Peloponnesian War and stuff, so be interesting to see a list that maybe has like Athens or Theban units sort of subjugated, and then they do get access to some special units too. So the Cretan archers, again, if you actually want really good ranged, is a solid option. Again, the thing that was absent here that we've seen, there's no cavalry, so possibly investing in some Thessalian cavalry could be a solid choice there, just to add a little bit more flexibility to your army. And beyond that, you get Greek mercenary hoplites, but again, you have your Spartan hoplites and your perioikoi, so it doesn't seem like that's really a worthwhile choice there. So, really cool list. Again, very elite army. You're probably going to be outnumbered a lot, and depending on how much you want to invest in levies, of course. But again, I wouldn't count on them to do much. Spartans are there to win in close combat, and really they will tend to do that more often than not. We do get 2 special heroes here. You get Aristodemus, only 70, and he's kind of a throwaway hero. As you can see, he's actually just a level 1 hero. He's basically just a named regular hoplite, not even so much a hero. So move 5, range 1, melee 4, 3 dice, 3 agility, 4 bravery, 2 armor, and 3 wounds. He's basically, like I said, a level 1 hero, and really, yeah, he's got two talents, Careless Charge and Thundering Charge. So Careless Charge lets him double his move when he's basically performing a move action to charge and get into combat, but the enemy gets a free shoot action against him. But again, that's not necessarily bad if the enemy can't shoot to begin with, because they're not equipped with ranged weapons. So used right, it can actually be pretty solid, and not really so careless. Thundering Charge, he gets they get -1 melee dice on the charge, but -1 to their melee, or he gets -1 to his melee rolls. And then considering his history, basically his special ability makes sense here. So Redemption, he's suicidally reckless in his need to regain honor, so when in close combat he will always issue a challenge to an enemy hero. And I mean, he does have a long spear, doesn't have a sword, which kind of sucks. So he's really not going to be that great in combat. I mean, +4 and 3 dice, he's definitely going to cause hits and stuff, but no ways to like buff his damage with like lethal or anything like that. So yeah, he must always issue and accept a challenge. He will never parry and will automatically pass all bravery checks. A unit he's leading may never use his bravery score. And if it flees from close combat, basically he sticks around to fight, trying to redeem his honor. So it can be kind of interesting if, basically just like bog an enemy down. But again, he has nothing in the way of crazy talents that necessarily will keep him alive for super long or really let him cause much damage. So if he comes up against a really good enemy hero, whether it's a named hero or just a solidly built regular hero, that could be kind of spell the end for him. But just as a kind of like regular upgrade, maybe not so bad. But we're really here to see one man only here, and that's Leonidas, probably the biggest badass of the whole game, although it's really a toss-up between him and Artemisia. They're both just ridiculously good, but as far as I think pure level, he's the highest at level 9, 270 denarii. His base move is 7, so yeah, 7. Range +2, melee 4, 5 dice, 3 agility, 4 bravery. Armor's pretty okay with just a line of thorax and 7 wounds. And he's got a super long list of talents here. So he's got About Face, Decapitate, Demoralize, Lethal Blade, Loyal Bodyguard, Mighty Blow, Motivation, Voice of Command, Wall of Iron, War Cry. And then he's got a large shield, line of thorax, long spear, and sword, and 3 very awesome special abilities. So this is Sparta, so basically he will pass all will to fight checks, as will any Spartan hero or hoplite within 12 of him. Once per battle, this is where we stand, and this is where they die, so 2 very cool abilities. But once per battle, he can declare he will not retreat from his current position by performing a special action. He and any unit he's leading will double their melee dice, and melee checks rolled against them will suffer a -1 penalty. So as if the Spartan hoplite units and stuff weren't good enough, this basically means you really shouldn't even bother trying to attack his unit. And then these benefits are lost if he and his unit are moved for any reason. So, but realistically, they're not gonna lose a fight. So unless for like an objective reason or something he had to move, that's about the only thing that really is gonna not have them just dominate that spot. So that's a really cool ability if you get him in his unit and maybe like park them on a key objective or something where they're not going to get outflanked. And really, if you combine this with that his unit maybe being in phalanx on top of it, like good lord, what are you going to do against that? And then this is where they die. Once per battle, Leonidas can challenge his men to inflict the heaviest casualties on the enemy by performing a special action. And he can do this after he does This Is Where We Stand, because as long as he doesn't move, that basically stays active. So until the end of the turn, every Spartan hoplite within 12 of Leonidas gains lethal 1 for all their attacks. So you double their attacks, and then they get lethal 1 for all the hoplites on top of that. Really crazy. Again, if you're the Spartan player and you can set this up right, where you're just going to dominate a certain spot, there's practically nothing that someone's going to do against you. I mean, heck, even charging in with an elephant, I don't know if the elephant can do enough damage to really shift a Spartan unit list. They are just going to go crazy. So, I mean, each Spartan will have 4 melee dice that will also basically be hitting all the time, and then on top of that, they're all lethal 1. So there's just not much that stands up to that. There really isn't. On top of that, Leonidas is also doing his thing. So speaking of his thing, he's got about face, where basically he has the ability to allow a phalanx unit to turn without wrecking the phalanx rule. Although you do have to get back into phalanx at either the end of the turn, I think, or the following turn. He's got Decapitate. So he's got a couple of like talents that they gave him here, which are more like situational or kind of like gimmicky, which don't really benefit him. But we'll run through them. So Decapitate is basically he basically gives up all of his dice. He only rolls 1 dice, but if he rolls a natural 6, the enemy hero is dead. And if you're playing like campaign play, the hero's just straight dead, as in like he's not coming back ever again. You don't roll for a wound or anything like that. He just like literally outright permanently kills a hero. So that's kind of cool. But again, we'll come back to some of our thoughts on that. Demoralize is cool. So if he outnumbers an enemy unit on a charge, so obviously with the unit he's leading, to get that, that unit has to test bravery or move away, and they count as fleeing. So again, whatever unit he makes contact with, if he's leading a unit of hoplites, like again, the enemy unit's basically just dead. So if they got caught with this on top of it, and they drop their like large shields because they fled essentially, and you just lost your ability to parry the stuff that the Spartans are throwing at you. So if they catch up to you again, you just pick up your models and put them aside, take them off the table. He's got Lethal Blade, so basically his attacks will be at lethal 2 with his sword, again, not the spear. So if it comes down to you needing to switch to that, which you might as well, he doesn't really need the buff from using a long spear versus someone who doesn't have a long weapon, so you might as well just go with the sword. You got Loyal Bodyguard, so if you have the points and you can park a low-level hero next to him, that hero can tank damage for him, so keeping Leonidas alive, where he can just, him and the rest of his guys can just kill stuff. So really crazy there. Mighty Blow is, again, another one of these gimmicky abilities for him that I just feel he doesn't need. It's characterful, but basically, again, he can pick do a single attack, but then it causes triple wounds and a potential knockdown. Again, kind of cool, but he doesn't even need to do that. He just needs to roll his dice and do his thing. Then he's got motivation, which is cool. So a unit that he is within 12 will get 3 actions if it hasn't already activated. So if you think about it, sort of combo wise, if you can do this is where we stand, and then this is where they die, and then motivation, you've got like your unit that will a Spartan hoplite unit that will fight 3 times with double melee dice and all of its lethal 1. So at that point, there's nothing that I can think of that you would be facing in the game is in any way standing up to that. And heck, this could probably even grind down a Praetorian cavalry unit without too much trouble. So just really stupidly good. He's got voice of command too, so friendly units within 6 get +1 bravery. So you might want to park some levies, not levies, but helots next to him, which could be kind of interesting, buffing their bravery a little bit. And as long as he's close, they're not going to think about running away. But if you got your regular hoplites and stuff, like they're not really going to run away anyway. So he's got Wall of Iron too, which is great. It does add a little bit to the defense because he does just have the Linothorax, but basically gives him an extra parry with his sword. So basically 4 parries for him, large shield, and then the 2 for the sword. So that's really strong for defense. And again, if you have a hero that's even tanking damage for you with the Loyal Bodyguard, so as long as that hero's alive, you don't even have to worry about that. And then last but not least, Warcry. So when he's charging, an enemy is at -1 melee on top of things. So he could charge a unit and then set up, like, again, the combo. Sort of like this is where we stand, this is where they die over the course of a turn or so. And just really dominate a spot. So it's interesting because the game... again, he's got 2 of these kind of gimmicky abilities where he forgoes dice to like do special stuff, but really with 5 dice and lethal 2, I feel like why does he need to bother with that stuff? He's hitting on 2s, and unless the opponent's hero has some kind of stuff on their own to where he's really seriously affected, you're better off, I think, just rolling your 5 dice, hitting on 2s. And you're causing them -2 of their armor saves. Over time, that should really, I think, win you the fight. And he's got 4 parries of his own, so incoming attacks from enemy heroes should ideally be lessened. Now, his armor is only +2, sure, but he's got 7 wounds, so he can definitely take some damage for a bit. But I feel like they have a talent called like why not fight in the shade, or sorry, fight in the shade, which is like a little quote from 300 and stuff like that. And I feel like there's a couple other talents that are like a little bit more characterful that might be more in line with the Spartans that they didn't bother giving him here. So it feels like in some ways there's some missed opportunities there just to make him a little bit more thematic. But he doesn't have something like Shield Bash, which would be cool. So stuff like that would be a little bit more interesting, I think, or other abilities where you cause knockdowns with the shield that don't necessarily cause you to put it all into one attack, basically. So there's definitely some things that could have been tweaked a little bit with him, but overall he's still just absolutely badass. But I think the bread and butter with him is getting to a point where he uses other 2 special abilities, and then just let him do his thing with his lethal 2. He's hitting on 2s again. And a key thing there, if he can get off, this is where we stand. So he and any unit he is leading, right? So he will double his melee dice. So 10 dice, hitting on 2s, lethal 2. He's got 4 parries with his gear. Just by himself, he could take care of units. So you don't even need a huge hoplite unit necessarily to make it into combat. They're just going to pulverize whatever's in front of them. There's just nothing that's really standing up, unless it's maybe another Spartan unit led by an opposing Leonidas. That's about it. It would be interesting to see, sort of like in a vacuum, who wins between him and Artemisia, heads up. So we might actually roll that out at some point and do a video on it. But yeah, Spartans. So if you like the video, definitely give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. We'll definitely have more SPQR content. But yeah, if you want to recreate 300, or you just like Spartans in general or the history, this is a great army for you. Again, very elite, but and not too diverse, but they will do their job in close combat. So stay tuned for more content.